right, we're back here with Mark Farina live in the studio. You are listening to Work.Groove. It is a track that Mark put out in the last,
It's about a year or two, a year and a half.
Year and a half old. But it's really a groove. That's what it is. It's that, and you sampled, we just talked about it off air, Pal Joey's Hot Music, which is a huge house music classic.
Yeah, I think he did under what New York Soho was his name.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's a Chicago, and I think it's a classic for a lot of old house heads when they hear that piano riff kick in.
Yeah, like me.
But we thought we'd
that's dope.
give it a little extra flavor.
Right. So the last record that we played, which was Good Vibration, that had that disco filtered house flavor, but it had some nice arrangements and some real big, real cool washes over it in terms of its sound and aesthetics. What gave you the inspiration to make that record, which has more of the disco groove than this one is more underground, kind of deep? Give me the kind of different.
Yeah, I think that one we started with the disco loop on that, and then he spreads it out over one of his digital kind of like things where you just put the same sample, like you chop up the sample into little parts on the pads, and sort of then we'll just mess around with them and re-change the arrangement by pressing them differently, as opposed to just doing a straight 4-bar sample. It's sort of chopped up a bit and rearranged. And then from there we found the vocal bit, and like I was saying, we want like something positive, and you just sort of layer pieces, and if I hear something in any of these songs, like we just try and like this one, for example, like Camaro came a little later, like with this work groove like sample that he had. He's like, oh, let's maybe put this in, and brought it all together. Like this track, we started with the music, and it's got that more, like you say, that deep late night feel to it, like so.
Yeah, like you could play the last record, the Good Vibrations record. That's like a big dance record. That people
like
are gonna
hour, depending, I guess.
And this one's like 3:30 in the morning. You're grooving. It's time to get into that deep, funky, right, underground sound.
Yeah.
Right. So when you even said it earlier about asking people how they got the inspiration to make their records, right? So when you started Good Vibration, like just walking in with Homero, is it that vibe that day? Like, what is it about your soul and your culture that wants to express that? How do you come up with that?
Yeah, I think with something like that, we go into it, like I think when you're chopping up like a disco-y sample, like, we had something in mind where we wanted that kind of Frenchy house feel, like we wanted to do something.
You guys talked about it earlier.
Yeah, like we wanted sort of, like a nice filtery, like that's still like the house that I.
Were you
really
listening to something earlier on in the week or like weeks before, and you're like, hey, I really kind of want to get that groove? Or?
I don't know. We're both, like, he's really good. Like, we both do a lot of digging for old stuff, and so, and we're both, like, I'm listening to music all the time and stuff, so, like, as opposed to this one is a deep feel, like, we wanted to get a variety of sounds, so we're like, oh, let's do a more chill track today, or let's try and do a little more upfront, sort of, peak dance floor-y, like, happier, uplifting track. So that was kind of the vibe we wanted to do with that. Was some, like, I don't know, something about a disco sample filtering, and it's a certain style that, like, I don't know, that I've just always liked. Starting from, like I mentioned, Sneak, and there's a bunch of other people that are good. Like Phil Weeks is another one, French guy. That sound. It's like a certain style.
Right. Are you collaborating with anyone else right now, or is it really just you and Homero just doing?
Yeah, just Homero. Yeah, because since I'm traveling so much, it's hard to combo up. I might be doing something with Jason Hodges, an old house guy. He's the Toronto guy. And, I'm working on maybe getting in the studio with DeMarcus in Dallas, because he lives there. J.T. Donaldson, another old friend of mine, he had been living in Dallas till recently. He moved to Austin, but he's another old school house guy from it was him and Lance DeSardi were the old, like, Dallas deep house guys, that if people know or not, there was this kind of close connection between Dallas and Chicago in that 90s kind of scene where, like, a lot of the house sounds in Dallas, like, had a connection to Chicago. Like, guy Gemini, Spencer Kinsey from Chicago, he was out of Dallas a bunch and worked with these people. So, Dallas always had a good house scene. So, yeah, JT is another friend of mine. Actually, at my house label that I mentioned, Great Lakes Audio, we're putting out an EP of his very soon. That's my other label is Great Lakes Audio.
So how many, speaking of Great Lakes, how many releases do you have on Great Lakes overall? Like, what is it like to run a label as a producer and, with the monetization now and digital? Talk a little bit about
that, I think it's like a love-hate relationship. You love doing it, and it's something that doesn't necessarily generate a bunch of income for an underground house label, but it's just fun to do. And I was fortunate to get demos handed to me, and for a while I would sort of siphon them off and be like, oh, this should go here, because when you know different labels, their sound. I'm like, oh, you should send this to that guy. And then at one point I just started keeping things and putting them out myself. So it gets I find it that you teeter with things like I had mentioned, like music in this day and age is so fast paced, like songs come and go, things, cycle, as opposed to vinyl days, things had a little longer shelf life.
Are you pressing up any vinyl of any of your releases?
Thinking about it. I did one a while back, one of my 12 inches. So, yeah, like you're trying to figure out now in this day and age, like, what's the best way to get your label and idea across? Do you want to go straight digital and do all that? Or do you want to do a little digital and go more vinyl? Because there's, a whole upsurgence of, vinyl-only DJs. That's its own sort of niche thing.
Good luck with the transportation of the
authority, So I just find that, there's so many labels, like it's like, music on steroids these days. I mean, I don't know about you, and, every day I'll get 30 to 40 promos, in my inbox to go through, and a lot of them are unfortunately disappointing.
Right.
But you got to go through it because you never know when you're going to get like a good track from a Joe Schmo. But yeah, just music, like things have kind of, even like, mixes are everywhere. Mixes are at a high pace. Music's at a high pace. Like, if you look at the track source chart, like, from 1 week to a week later, like all the songs kind of almost, change in and out. There's a whole new bunch. Like you miss 2 weeks of, music, and like the whole chart has changed. So I don't know where all that's leading in terms of if it can get you much faster, but it just makes it interesting. And like, does the world need another record label? But there's always, good stuff to put out.
Yeah, and then you want to brand your label, right? In a way, and when you brand your label, the opportunity to brand is different today because you don't have a physical product to send out that has a logo and cover art and all these kinds of things. Yeah, you see the cover art in Traxsource and Beatport, but you can't really even see it. Like, it's so small. Sometimes you're on your phone, or it's hard to brand that identity. And I work in branding a lot with my web development business, so I know, I'm working with clients all the time on branding and logos and stuff, and it's almost like a weird lost art in the record business, right? It's like, how do you brand the identity? Like, Nervous had that character, right? Nervous Records. Yeah,
even all those, like, that golden era of house in the 90s and early 2000s of vinyl, and labels had, like, an art department where there would be, like, like you could collect record covers. I was really into record covers as a kid.
Yeah.
And into, 20s, and, if there's like I used to love when there'd be like two versions of a 12-inch, and one's colored, like the artwork's connected in some way, and you could read and see the names. So now all that's lost. It's just a little square on your phone. There's not much interaction with that.
I mean, you think about like 8-Ball Records. They even had a record store. Like, you could get the shirt, you could get the vinyl box, your record crate, 8-Ball record crate for travel. You could get the jacket. You could go to the store. You could do all of that. But today, that's kind of, we just got to go to Beatport and get our house music. Right?
Yeah, and you see just a little square, pictures of the covers, and it's just a different, and it's a lot to take in. When you go and shop at a digital site, there's just so much, names and pictures, and so it's nice to have physical things in your hands to look at.
So let's switch to Asheville. Like, you've been here, you said five or six times, right?
To DJ. Maybe more. I think just at Asheville Music Hall.
Oh, Asheville Music Hall.
So, it's been about 10, 12 years, I think, coming here at least.
Right,
14 years.
How did that happen, right? Like, you keep on coming back to this small, very hyper-local mountain town, where we don't really have a ton of DJs coming through. I mean, we do, but a lot of bands here. The DJ thing is probably second to the band thing.
I'm an outside perspective, obviously, coming in, but it seems like good music town. Like people just like music, regardless
Yeah.
of what type it is, from folk music to
Mm-hmm.
disco to reggae to whatever. People like music, and there's like a nice, open-minded sense about people here. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I was just lucky to be able to come here and keep coming back. You know, sometimes, I mean, as a DJ, you get to play somewhere once, or you never know if you're going to be back there. Like things change. Sometimes
Mhm.
it could just come down like you're playing one club or one promoter, and that one club or promoter changes, then you don't go back to a city for years.
Right.
So you just sort of have to be grateful, and I've somehow been fortunate and played. Like you said, clubs here turn over, things change, and that happens in any city. But to be able to still keep playing is a great thing. And I just like this town is, to me, I don't know, it's got like this just unique combination of things, geography and
Do you
beauty
get
and
to
vibe.
Do you get to spend time here sometimes when you come?
I've
I know
spent a
you
couple
have to,
days. Like, I mean, when I've come here, I've always rented a car, and I like to drive around and check stuff out. Like I mentioned to you, I'd almost moved here. I thought about it, and I looked at a house somewhere, but it was far from my son's family and that. But it's a cool place, So
Yeah, so you like coming here. We like having you here, so
Yeah.
it's awesome to have your sound, your groove come here and be applied, and have people then learn about this era, this genre of music, this feeling, the house vibe that you and I were talking about earlier, this culture that you and I come from. And I'm so glad to have you on the show, because that is exactly what I wanted to talk about, this work groove, record. And I'll just pump it up a little bit here. That dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, right? That's like a classic sound, right? That's a classic house music sound that most producers of today's house music wouldn't even know to go back to, wouldn't even know how to make that sound as it does, and harken back to a specific time, but yet be, it's timeless, but yet it's new, right?
yeah, like I grew up into that East Coast hip hop sound and sampling. They all sampled all the like rare jazz records, funk, soul, like Tribe Called Quest stuff. Has the origins to their samples. Now, like to apply that same thing to house, like take something old that people might know, mix it with something new, and come up with something new in the end of it all.
Cool. Well, let's let this one run, and we'll have one more track with you, and I know you got to get going, so we'll just we'll try to get you out of here in the next 10 minutes or so. All right, DJ Tony Z right here in the mix. The Asheville House Music Society. We're sitting here with DJ Mark Farina. He is going to head out tonight, and he's going over to Asheville Music Hall. You've got Josh Huey. He's DJing until about 11 from Earth Tone Sound System. And then Jericho Michael's going to come on, do a set, and we'll see Mark on the decks from 12 to 2. And I will be over there hanging out for tonight's show. So hope to see you over there. So Mark, thank you so much for coming in tonight.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was really great for you to take the time to come and see us and talk a little shop about house music. I think I just have one more kind of question about the DJ culture industry. Right now in your travels, you travel an awful lot. You go to various different places. In the DJ culture, it's been maybe for the last 15 years that you've had to produce house music to make a name for yourself and get gigs in the door. Do you see that changing at all, or is it still the case?
That is, I think to travel out of your city, you need to make some tracks.
Mm-hmm.
Like if your city has a good club scene, and if you get into a good spot, like a good night, like if you're throwing a good night, or involved in like as a regular in a good night, that could be enough to sort of move you on from there.
Right.
But I definitely think if you want to get out, it seems like tracks are the way to go. It seems almost that way more than ever. I think there's a little while in that 90s period, I want to say, like the other one would have been Doc Martin and myself, that would DJ, like DJs that got DJ gigs from just other DJ gigs and not necessarily getting DJ gigs from production.
Right.
And we were definitely still a minority back then. So even nowadays, I think even now, like you see a lot of like, the DJs playing their own tracks with their own record label shirt that they're wearing on, black label with their logo. Like, like DJs seem like,
that's their branding themselves.
Yeah, you just sort of got to have your own label and look, and and some of these guys, I don't know how they do it. They're putting out like a track a week on a variety of labels. Like a lot of these younger house guys, like some of them every week they got a new release. That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So,
well, I guess you can do that with digital, right? It's like if you're flying around, you're throwing things together, you're putting them out. But the quality, that's the other thing. Is you got to make hit records. Work Groove is a hit record. Like at the end of the day, you know, every underground DJ is gonna play that record.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a test over time, which will be interesting to see what this digital music world looks like in 5 or 10 years, and how you go about looking back at old digital songs that were only digital. Like, because now with all my old house records, I know where they are. I put them on the wall. Like, you know, I put them in a rack. They're still there. You take care of them. They're going to stay there and be good. Whereas digital files over years, things happen. You change computers. You lose a certain track.
Oh yeah.
Like, it'll just be interesting to see what songs from the digital era live on and come back as sort of classics of this day and age.
Yeah, that's true. You know, I lost my computer over the summer, and I had to get this new 13-inch that you're looking at here. And, you know, I had to transfer libraries, and my iTunes thing screwed up, and now there's all these records that I bought on Beatport that are now kind of buried, and I'm like, oh, what did I buy? Where's my purchase list? Let me go back to my purchase list and see, and then I gotta make a playlist of them, and then I gotta get into track. It's funny. It's supposed to be less work, but it's actually
Yeah, it could be more. It's like
it's actually more work.
like when you're buying records. Like, say you buy a stack of records, but you get home. By the time you get home, there are some missing mysteriously. But that's the digital world. Like, you have these tracks, and then in a couple months,
Where'd they go?
Yeah, you might have put it in the wrong place. It's just, you know, it's just a title somewhere,
Yeah,
and things sort of can get lost in the digital seascape of music.
My last thing I'm going to say before I let you go is one of the things that we were talking about off the air was about choosing your sound and staying true to your sound. And I had gotten away from that in the last version of the show over at the station across town a couple years ago. And I decided, I put it in my head that I'm going to bring this sound. And in that I said, I'm going to play vocals. I think vocals, you can play every underground record that you want, and it's really cool stuff, and I love it, but there is something about a vocal rendition that transcends everything for you. It really touches the heart, right? And so, you know, where are you in that world, like in terms of vocals versus tracks?
I mean, I'm still pretty picky. I mean, I think you need an even balance of vocals and instrumentals. I like to mix it up in a set and have, you know, not just do all instrumentally tracky stuff. You know, I like to do ups and downs and peaks and valleys in my sets. So, but I'm picky with vocals. Like, I find, like, I'll, you know, out of 10 new vocal tracks I'll hear, I'll like one out of, like, you know, a bunch. I find I'm very select, and I still like a lot of the old classic, like, you know, old Robert Owens tracks and
I'll Be Your Friend and stuff like that.
and like or like, you know, Michael Watford, Hold It On is another good old, like, I'm picky with vocals, and you know, like,
I love that you're bringing these things up. Like, I'm like, yeah, I know that record.
Yeah, that's good. So,
Michael Watford.
so, you know, I used to be a big Inner City fan. I always loved
awesome.
like her voice. So yeah, I'm just picky with vocals, and so, but they're important. You know, either if it's a vocal sample or a vocal sound, you know, like, that's kind of how you set the tone.
Which I didn't realize that, you know, your first record was on Kevin Saunderson's label,
Yeah,
which I had no idea until I just started doing a little research for the show.
And I remember we were really active as Derek Carter, Chris Mazuka, myself, and we were upset because they took a while to put it out. And in that period of when we did that EP at KMS Studios in Detroit, then Pacific State came out, 808 State, and that sort of, like, we were onto that ambient house thing before them. Like, that kind of seemed like it. We're like, we had that idea. Like, Pacific State we were already doing that. Like, you should have put it out sooner. You know, with like Kevin Saunderson, like, but, you know, things. You know, that's how vinyl was. You know, like, to put out a record is work. You know, you take the recording, you send it off to the plant, you get test pressings.
Right.
You got to mail out those records as opposed to the digital age. But yeah, so that was my first recording experience, and this was back when for anybody who's familiar with that Detroit sound, you know, on one corner of Detroit it was Juan Atkins studio, Model 500 recording, you know, his Metroplex label. Upstairs from him was Derek May in Transmat Studio, and then next door was Kevin Saunderson with KMS, and also Shea Damier was working there, you know, with Prescription, all in this little corner of a block. So, you know, we would drive there from Chicago in 1989 and work on a couple things, and it was,
Yeah, I feel like I had the same thing in New York where I would go, you know, I'd go to Roger's house, I would go to Eric's studio over in Jersey, then I would jump over to Orman's house on 21st Street, I think it was, and then I would roll over to somebody else's, and you know, it was just, it's like you're in that mix of all these creative people. But I don't want to keep you any longer. I know you got to get over to the show and you know, get set up and everything. But I really truly appreciate it. It was so good to see you. I'm so glad we got the chance to connect. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
And good luck with everything, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks for having me, and hope to be back this way in the near future.
Oh, I'm sure
maybe you'll let me send you a little guest mix for the show.
Oh yeah, no, I'd love to do. Yep, love to do a guest mix anytime.
Sort of follow up to this interview.
That'd be super awesome. I would have loved to had you on the show to do a mix like live, but I almost felt like I'd be, you know, like overstepping my bounds. Because
yeah, I don't know if I haven't messed with that thing with the tractor.
Yeah, we know each other, but you know, we know each other for years, but we haven't really. This is the first time we've spent like, you know, an hour together.
Yeah, especially out of a club. Sometimes you have those.
Yeah,
there's certain people you see at the club, and you know, you don't get always a chance to hang out exterior to the craziness of the nightlife.
So yeah, I kind of felt like, well, I don't know, I'm not sure. Should I ask him? Should I not? Like, so, and then my co-producer's out actually taking care of his kids tonight. So it was just me solo, and I had to answer the door for you and all that kind of crazy stuff. But it really worked out. And if you want to do a guest mix, you know, by all means, send one along. I'd love to play it, and I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.